What's going on? Brian here, and today I'm going to be talking about probably my two favorite topics to talk about. So, I want to talk about jiu-jitsu and I want to talk about business. Now, at first, those two might seem like they have nothing in common, but they actually have a ton in common. In fact, jiu-jitsu has taught me a lot about business, and I'm going to talk specifically about five things that jiu-jitsu has taught me about business. Now, before you check out, you think jiu-jitsu, I'm not interested. Has nothing to do with me. I don't even know what it is. Don't tune out, because if you run a business, if you are trying to scale your business, trying to start a business, trying to grow your sales, I think there's going to be a ton of takeaways in this video for you. So again, jiu-jitsu, one of my favorite things. I've been training since the beginning of 2014. I grew up as a wrestler and was kind of looking for another grappling sport to get into. Got into jiu-jitsu, and it's been love at first tap ever since. So. Again, you don't have to know anything about jiu-jitsu to get the key takeaways from this, but I want to talk about it for two main reasons. One, anytime I can talk about jiu-jitsu, I'm happy. If I can get just one more person to try it, I think the world would be a better place. And I really do believe that. I think the mental and the physical push that the sport gives you, it puts a lot of things in perspective. It reveals a lot about you to yourself, and I think just doing hard things is good. So that's the number one reason. The second reason is I think that when we have passions, we start to find commonalities between the passion and life overall, right? We start finding that this thing is a microcosm of life. So, I've had several big passions in my life. At one point, I played semi-professional golf on the mini tours, and that became all-consuming for me. And I started to see golf as a microcosm of life. I started to see these things that, at first glance, might seem a little ridiculous, like, oh, how you approach, your shot in golf is so much like life, right? And if you've met anyone who's passionate about anything, if you are passionate about something, you probably have felt that, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It could be knitting. It could be golf. It could be basketball. It could be jiu-jitsu. It could be anything. But you'll start to see these commonalities where you go, man, this thing is so much like life, right? It's a microcosm of life. And I think when you do that, a few things happen. One, I can tell you from my experience, the happiest times in my life were when I was obsessed. I have a philosophy that balances BS, because anytime in my life where I have tried to have balance, almost, sometimes we do it in an effort to increase our happiness, right? When you chase happiness, it's the fastest way to not find it. I find that I find happiness when I'm not chasing happiness, but I'm chasing my passion, when I'm chasing my obsession. And sometimes business is the passion, right? And that's okay. But I still think having something outside of business as a passion is beneficial for a few reasons. One, it gives us this point of focus, this thing that we can, when we've had sort of the stress of the day from work, we can go and now decompress and go there as a respite from everything else we have to deal with, right? And I also think you start to find this pattern, these microcosms in the passion as they relate to life, and you start learning how to learn better. You start learning how to win, learning how to succeed. And once you start seeing patterns, it's kind of like learning multiplication. Most of the time we're doing things through addition. But when we learn multiplication, we can add very, very quickly, right? It's like a shortcut, because that's essentially what multiplication is, right? It's a faster way to do addition. And when we find these commonalities, this microcosm between the thing we're passionate about and business, or the thing we're passionate about and life, or the thing we're passionate about and relationships, it just gives us, we see the patterns, and then it gives us shortcuts. It gives us mental models to use. So I'm a huge fan of finding something you're very passionate about. And again, because in my experience, the times I've been happiest in my life were the times when I was obsessed with something. I was just pursuing it, and it was consuming me. And I would go to sleep thinking about it, wake up thinking about it. Those are the times I was happiest. The times where I look back and I think I was the least happy and even kind of went negative, negative happy. Those were the times where I was almost chasing happiness and setting up a life that would allow for that. I mean, I could talk about this whole topic separately, but one reason I'm talking about this today is to not only reveal some of my passions, but to encourage you to find one, or if you do have one, to double down on it. Because while it may seem like a distraction from, let's say, building your business, not only is it going to give you much needed time away, especially if you're putting in effort and really, grinding on the business, it's also going to allow you to start doing to do some pattern recognition and to start seeing how to learn better and how to succeed, because you start finding that the equation is kind of the same, whether it's business or, like I said, knitting, jujitsu, golf, basketball, writing a book, whatever it might be, you're going to find similarities. So those are the reasons why I'm talking about it. And again, anytime I can talk about jiu-jitsu is always a win. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a post that I wrote a while back. It was 5 things that jiu-jitsu taught me about business. And I want to go through them, and then I just want to expand on them a little bit. So the first one was, to beat big, you have to go small. So if you don't know what jiu-jitsu is, again, you don't need to get takeaways from this, but it's a grappling sport. So it's like wrestling kind of, but not really at all. But there is a component of wrestling, but then there's also this submission grappling side of it, where basically you're getting someone to tap, where they're basically crying uncle, right? They're saying, that's enough. Okay, we're done. Let's start over. And one of the things that can be tempting is, especially when you're starting, is to try to use strength, to try to overpower your opponent, whoever you're going against. And we do this in business all the time because we're small, right? We're a small business. We're just trying to get our, kind of build momentum, starting to try to capture some part of the market, right? To bring customers to us. And a lot of times will act bigger than we are, right? We'll act like we're this big business. And in some ways that's good because it lends some credibility, but we don't lean into our strategic advantage, which is that we're a small business, that we can have more touch points with the customer, that we can have better interaction, better customer service. We can offer a more intimate experience with the customer than a big major brand can, right? And we can be more nimble. We can move more quickly. So we don't use that strategic advantage. And that happens in jiu-jitsu, right? We try to be really strong, overpower an opponent. And when you realize that, you can use your small size can actually be an advantage. There's positions you could get into that the bigger guy can't. There was a guy, Lucas Leitch. He was a grappler, very, very good. I don't know if he's Hall of Fame, but high level jiu-jitsu practitioner. And he would actually, because of his style of how he competed, he would actually go several weight classes higher, because the smaller guys that were his size were just as fast, just as nimble, just as technical. The bigger guys tend to use their size a lot, and it's easy to sort of sneak in crevices, and that was his game. So he could sort of, the spots that they would leave open, he could sneak into. So he would be I think he was a lightweight, and he would go up to, medium heavyweight. So much bigger guys that outweighed him by 30, 40 pounds, and he actually found that he did better there. So the key takeaway is, don't feel like you have to act big to win in business. You can use the fact that you are small as an advantage, because there's things you can do. I said big brands will never be able to connect with customers the way a small business can. And if you keep connecting with customers and giving them an extraordinary experience, then very soon you'll be the big one worrying about the small guy with the ability to connect with his customer and to be nimble and to do all the things that you used to be able to do. So use that to your advantage, and don't feel like you have to pretend that you're bigger than you are. The second thing that jiu-jitsu taught me about business was pay for mentorship. So I said, identify someone that has the knowledge you need to become a better version of yourself and be ready to pay for their guidance. It's the closest thing to a shortcut to success that you'll find. And speaking of shortcuts, and I'll get to number 3 in a second here. So the main thing is, I got a piece of advice a long time ago from someone. And I believe, actually, so it was a long time ago. And the advice went something like this, and I'm paraphrasing, was you have 2 options. You can earn your way in, or you can buy your way in. And at first glance, it might seem kind of weird to say, but the takeaway, the meaning of that was, you could take 20 years to earn your spot, right? To figure it out on your own. Or you can write a check and buy your way in. Whether that's buying your way into a room of people who are already winning, who are already successful, and just being a fly on the wall and listening and upping your game basically overnight, because now you're figuring out what the smartest people in the room are doing. You won't be the smartest person in the room, which is perfect. I have a saying that I like to remind myself and remind everyone I work with: get uncomfortable, or get comfortable with being around people that are so successful it makes you uncomfortable. If you've ever had that feeling where you're in a room and you're like, I hope they don't figure out that I don't belong in this room, that's the room you want to be in. So try to get into those rooms. And also paying for mentorship. So whether it's, paying your way in, right? Either earn your way in, or you could buy your way in. Whether it's buying your way into a room, or buying your way into the knowledge that someone else has already accumulated. So many people are afraid to pay for mentorship, pay for guidance. And I get it, because sometimes it's hard to figure out who the best, who really is an expert and who is just acting like an expert, right? Like acting the part. But if you can get access to the actual experts, you're gonna shortcut. It's the closest thing to a shortcut that you're gonna find, because you're gonna learn what to do, and most importantly, as Charlie Munger always says, invert the problem, right? You're gonna learn what not to do, the critical mistakes not to make. In fact, Charlie Munger has a quote I've quoted many times that I love, and he says, "It's amazing the long-term advantage people like, he's talking about himself, people like me have gotten by consistently not doing stupid things." So many times we think of the things we have to do to get ahead, but if you can learn the mistakes to avoid, that's just as valuable, if not more valuable, because those are usually the things that we don't notice and we need someone else to point out. So for me in jiu-jitsu, I've always, no matter where I'm training, what state I'm training in, where I'm at, always try to find someone to get private lessons from, to accelerate my knowledge, to answer my questions. Because I could sit all day trying to figure out, if someone does something to me, they tap me, I'm like, man, how did they do that? Or why isn't this working? And I could spend hours, days, weeks, ignore the problem, keep dealing with it for months. Or I can ask someone in a private lesson, a black belt who's been training for 20 years, hey, what do I do here? And they'll literally, in 1 minute, they go, oh yeah, here, easy, do this. Boom, done. And if you do that, the compounding effect of that it's immeasurable. Because instead of delaying and delaying and delaying, you get question answered, boom, boom, answer. And then you start to exponentially grow much, much faster. So pay for mentorship. Number 2, earn your way in, buy your way in. Whenever you can buy your way in, do it. All right, number 3, there are no shortcuts. So I was saying the closest thing to a shortcut to success is, paying for mentorship. And speaking of shortcuts, there are no shortcuts. Getting good takes hard work and time. How long does it take an average person to get a jiu-jitsu black belt? Average people don't get jiu-jitsu black belts because it takes extraordinary sacrifice to make it. And I'm always honored every time I meet a black belt, because I know that's just a white belt who never quit. And on average, it can take 12, 13, 14, 15 years. I mean, it depends, but it's not uncommon. I mean, that's about average. 12 years consistently training every single week, 3-4 days a week. It'll take you over a decade to get a black belt. And some people, they have breaks. I had a pretty long break because I started training at the beginning of 2014. Personal issues, just life got in the way and I came back. It's not uncommon. So, I mean, it can take 12, 15, 18 years to get a black belt. So not only is it a testament to hard work and sacrifice and focus, but it's a testament to compounding returns, right? It's just every day, every week, just putting in a small amount of effort, and how ultimately that yields a massive result. Because very, very few people ever attain that level of mastery, whether it's a black belt or whether it's building a successful business. So there are no shortcuts. Remember, extraordinary returns are simply the product of consistently made deposits, small deposits over time, but done consistently. Number 4, details matter. The difference between good and great usually comes down to details and efficiency. Be mindful of what you're doing every day to move your business forward. Leave the flashy stuff to the amateurs and focus on the vital few things that are actually going to produce results. I talk about this all the time. What are the things that actually move the needle? What actually matters? And the details matter. I'll ask people, what's your profit margin, right? Because that number is so important. It affects so many different things in your business. And you could argue it's the most important thing to figure out in your business, because it's sort of a linchpin that affects everything else. So what's your profit margin? And they'll say, it's about, as soon as they say it's about, no. no. Go figure it out and then come back. What's your profit margin? And you'll see this on Shark Tank. If you ever watch Shark Tank, they'll ask for the numbers and people will sit there and go, what's your cost of acquisition? It's about $20. And you always know someone's making it up when they use round numbers, right? What's your conversion rate? It's about 2% on our website. What's your, whatever it might be. What's your profit margin? Oh, it's, about 30%. Whatever it is. And as soon as the sharks feel like they're not getting a real answer or that the person doesn't know these things, they're like, I'm out, right? They're not interested because they know how important it is to know those details. And it's not just details around numbers. It's details around the fulfillment of the product. What's the experience like when they unbox it? If you sell clothing, is it all just thrown in there or is it nicely folded and has a nice tissue paper and a note and the personalization, all those things. Now, going back again to point number one, you have the ability to give people an extraordinary experience, especially if you're a small business, right? That the big companies can't really do because they have to just crank out product, right? Crank out orders. You get to put a personal touch on things. So that's a detail that is a strategic advantage for you that you should take advantage of. You must be taking advantage of when you're smaller. So details matter. And it's important to not just overlook them or not just round up or figure, that's not that important. There's a great article by Paul Graham. I recommend you look it up. He was a co-founder of Y Combinator, I believe. And it says, do things that don't scale. The idea being that a lot of people think, well, I can't do that. Like that's too much of a detail to do because it won't scale. When we're getting 1,000 orders a day, I won't be able to do that. Well, figure it out when you get 1,000 orders a day. But right now, while you're getting 2 orders a day, do things that will not scale. Like intentionally do things. The handwritten note, right? A video message to every customer saying, hey, if it's Michelle, not just a pre-recorded one. Hey, Michelle, I just want to say thank you so much for this order, right? Do things that don't scale. And if you can't scale them, that's fine. And then maybe later on, you can actually figure out a way to scale it. But those are the things that are a strategic advantage for you when you're small, and the details absolutely matter. And then number 5, the 5th thing that Jiu Jitsu taught me, and I could probably do 6 through 10 after this. And actually, let me know if you'd like to hear more. Let me know in the comments, and I'll put those together. So showing up is the hardest part. Whether it's business or Jiu Jitsu, the hardest part is consistently getting on the mats. We train on mats, so that's why I say that. Admittedly, I hadn't been getting on as I was going through some personal things. But fortunately, I did come back. And I say there's no secret to success. Success is a habit. So, that you hear it all the time, right? It's compounding effect. You got to put in the work. And I think one of the biggest breakthroughs for me when really understanding the impact and the power of compounding returns is that no one day will totally throw you off if you don't show up, but every day matters, if that makes sense. So the idea, Warren Buffett has a quote. He says, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially that, to win in investing, but really this applies to anything in life. Again, a microcosm, right? He gives advice. If you follow anything by Warren Buffett, I've read everything that Warren Buffett has put out, everything written about him. I've read all the Berkshire Hathaway annual reports, read everything Charlie Munger has put out. And they're talking about investing, yet their wisdom applies to life. So what they've found in investing is a microcosm of life. And you want to talk about passion. I mean, Warren Buffett has literally been investing for 87 years. So, this is what I'm saying about the power of passion. And he's also one of the happiest people you'll meet. I mean, there's a book called Tap Dancing to Work, and it's just Warren Buffett and why he just loves what he does. He is obsessed with investing. But he talks about how all you need to win in investing, and again, in life, is a tall enough hill and some wet snow. And what he means is just give me enough time and some wet snow that'll build over time, and you'll end up with a massive snowball. In fact, there's a book called Snowball, and it's a biography of it's Warren Buffett, one of Warren Buffett's biographies. And the idea is just building up that snowball. So think about it in anything else. Think about it in business, right? So we just need just give you enough time and give you some wet snow that'll build on itself and compound over time. And if you think about that analogy, it's powerful because it's saying that, it's just a snowflake. So if you miss one day, if there's this one day you can't get up, you can't do it, that's okay. Like, don't beat yourself up. But it also goes to show you how important tomorrow is and how important today is now, because you need all the snowflakes to build that massive snowball. But at the same time, if you miss one along the way, it's okay. So don't beat yourself up, but at the same time, recognize the importance of today, because you need all the snowballs. And you don't have to do anything extraordinary today. You just have to put, not snowballs, snowflakes, right? You don't have to do anything extraordinary today. You just need another snowflake on the snowball. Just another snowflake today. Just put another snowflake, just one snowflake. That's all you need to do. And eventually this ball will build up and it'll have massive power. You think about it. Big enough snowball can knock over a building. And all it is composed of, probably, millions of snowflakes. So every day matters. You don't have to do anything extraordinary today, but it's important that you show up every day. And if you can't show up one day, that's okay. Just make sure you're ready to come back tomorrow. So those are my 5 lessons that Jiu-Jitsu has taught me. I encourage you to find a passion. I have found in my life that it's made me the happiest I've been. And once I started seeing the patterns, whether it was investing, whether it was golf, and these are things in my life that have been huge passions: investing, golf, jiu-jitsu, chess. I started seeing that, wow, learning is all the same. Success is all the same. And then I applied it to business. And then I find that all that sort of wisdom put together has helped me understand my life a little bit better. And I would encourage you to pursue those passions, because I do think balance is not the objective. I think, and not to say that we don't give time to family and to friends and everything. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's important, I think, to be passionate about something and to really go all in, because that's what excites us. And in my experience, it's been the time I've been happiest. So that's the only advice I can give, is from my experience. So in any case, go find something you're passionate about. And if you're passionate about growing your business, apply some of these principles that I shared today and go crush it. And I encourage you to go try some jiu-jitsu. So, all right, take it easy. See you next time.